Welcome to the Restoration Obscura Field Guide podcast. I'm your host and the creator of Restoration Obscura, John Bulmer. I'm a professional photographer, historian, and archivist. Restoration Obscura explores the forgotten, the hidden, and the overlooked corners of history through images, artifacts, and stories that time nearly erased. From lost infrastructure to recovered photographs, each episode is a journey into the past, told through the lens of research, restoration, and rediscovery. Thanks for joining me. Each episode of the Field Guide is its own journey into a different corner of history. Sometimes we stay close to home in the capital region of upstate New York. Other times we follow the story wherever it leads, regional, national, even global. But always, we chase what's been overlooked, what's been buried, what's still waiting to be found. Restoration Obscura is where lost history comes back to life, in words, in images, and in the forgotten places still waiting to be found. These stories aren't scraped from Wikipedia. They're dug from the archives, walked in the field, and told with care. Today's episode, a visual history of the Capital District, a field guide. Cities are never finished. They're built, buried, and built again, layer upon layer, until history clings to every street corner and brick wall. In Albany, Schenectady, and Troy, the past is everywhere for those who know how to look. Old waterways like the Beaverkill and the Rutten Kill still shape the streets and floodplains beneath the surface. The footprint of the Erie Canal cuts through the city long after its waters were rerouted. Brick row houses in Troy once housed iron workers and factory managers. In Schenectady's Stockade district, Dutch colonial homes stand next to Victorian mansions, architectural clues marking waves of prosperity, immigration, and change. Faded ads for Coca-Cola, Beverwick Brewery, and blacksmiths and furnace manufacturers still linger on brick walls. Cobblestone streets break through worn asphalt. Sidewalk stamps mark the names of long-vanished contractors. Even the ports of Albany and Rensselaer tell the story of a working waterfront that once moved beer, bricks, iron, and ice down the Hudson River. This is the Capital District as a layered archive, a city built over forgotten rivers, buried infrastructure, and neighborhoods lost to urban renewal. Restoration Obscura's latest field guide is more than history, it's a way of seeing. A guide to walking slowly, looking closely, and reading the physical evidence of a region shaped by labor, industry, and survival. The past isn't lost. It's right in front of us, written in brick, stone, and steel. Let's start with this idea. What if we thought of the entire city as an archive? What if every street corner and building held a clue to the past? One era built directly on top of another, like layers of sediment in ancient rock. It's all still there, preserved in brickwork, buried beneath asphalt, or rising up in the shape of an old steeple or mill. Now, let's talk about how buildings can actually remember things. Architecture is one of the most visible storytellers we have. You can look at a single building and see pride, decline, reinvention. From Albany's towering city hall to Troy's brick row houses to the carved window frames in Schenectady's Stockade district. Each detail is its own little history lesson. But let's go even deeper, beneath the surface, where things start to fade. Ghost signs, faded ads painted on the sides of old buildings. They're still out there. Coca-Cola murals, "You Need a Biscuit" logos, the kinds of things you don't notice until you start to look. They're beautiful, and they're important, and once you begin to notice them, you will see them everywhere. They are artifacts that tell us about the people who lived in our towns long before us. Okay, let's look down for a second, literally. The ground beneath your feet has a memory too. Old cobblestones show through cracked pavement. Brick streets, trolley tracks, granite curbs, all of it's still there, hiding in plain sight. Even the buried streams and old canal paths, they shape the land in ways you can still trace if you know how. And speaking of what's beneath our feet, have you ever considered the Poestenkill? It's still flowing, cutting through the heart of Troy. You'll find it above ground in places, crashing down waterfalls, feeding into culverts, disappearing under the city, only to re-emerge again. It powered the ironworks that helped make Troy a powerhouse of American industry. And like so many natural features around here, it still shapes where streets are built, how neighborhoods evolved, and where industries thrived. Let's pivot to infrastructure, because yes, even the most mundane stuff tells a story. Manhole covers stamped with the names of foundries that vanished 100 years ago, rail spurs embedded in concrete, trolley tracks that haven't seen service in a century, and yet they're still here, still visible in the right light. And let's talk about Schenectady for a moment. Specifically, the GE Realty plot. It's like a preserved pocket of time. Original street lamps, stone street markers etched with the GE monogram. All of it built for executives of the General Electric Company when it was at its height. It's a neighborhood frozen in careful, deliberate design. And around the Edison Tech Park, you'll still find factory remnants, rail lines, and fading logos on brick walls. Its infrastructure is memory. Now here's something I love: the ports. The ports of Albany and Rensselaer aren't just modern hubs of trade. They're built on centuries of shipping history. The old piers, cranes, and warehouse footprints still guide how the modern port functions today, and if you stand there long enough, you can hear it: the echoes of iron chains, boat horns, shouted orders, and the rhythm of labor that once pulsed through every dock. Some of these places have found second lives. Take the Harmony Mills in Cohoes, once a textile powerhouse, now luxury lofts, or Albany's pump station, now a brewery. These are spaces reborn, but still marked by what they once were. You can see it in the beams, in the bolts, in the way light falls across old brick. Now you're probably wondering, how do you actually do this? How do you see like a historian? Well, you start by paying attention to what endures. Look for those ghost signs, for contractor stamps in the sidewalk, for brick patterns, Flemish bond, English bond, for rails peeking through pavement, granite curbs that haven't moved in 100 years, a building whose shape doesn't match its current use. Street names like Mill Lane, Spring Avenue, or Water Street, they're all breadcrumbs. And when you start to notice, you start to understand the city is layered, and it's talking to you. Cities aren't static. They shift, they rebuild, but they also remember. And that memory is written into the materials themselves, into the brick and steel and stone, into the curves of old streets and the gaps where something once stood. Reading your city is an act of preservation, a way to witness the past that shaped your present. That's what Restoration Obscura is all about. You can subscribe to Restoration Obscura at restorationobscura.com. This podcast is copyright 2025 by John Bulmer Media and Restoration Obscura. All rights reserved. No reuse, rebroadcast, or repurposing of any content without express written permission. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing on Substack for more articles, photos, and content. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, John Bulmer, and remember, every photo has a story. Until next time.